Welcome back. The Lost Vikings, who have not been heard from in over 20 years, have finally re-emerged for the first time since the 16-bit era as the latest characters in Blizzard's Heroes of the Storm. Before the days of World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, or Hearthstone, one of Blizzard's premier franchises was the Lost Vikings. In Heroes of the Storm, the Lost Vikings count as one single character selection, but actually control as individuals, which fans of the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo era will love. After all, this is how the Lost Vikings have rolled since the very beginning, back when they starred in their very own series. So just who are these guys anyway? Today, Shacknews is taking a look back at the original 1992 Lost Vikings game. We'll be analyzing what exactly made it such a cult classic, while also speaking to some of Blizzard's developers to give us their perspective on the trio and the legacy they have left. Let's meet the cast. The Lost Vikings were led by red-haired Eric the Swift, who starts the game's tutorial off by taking his two Viking pals on a great hunt. Eric separates himself from the pack as the fastest runner and the only Viking that can jump. He also has his hardened helmet to bash through walls, and in some cases his headbutt can even plow through enemies. Balog the Fierce is the muscle of the group. He wields a mighty sword and is the self-proclaimed toughest of all the Vikings. He's the only Viking that can engage enemies directly in combat, and must often carve a path with sheer force for his fellow Vikings. He can also attack from a distance with his bow and arrow, which also can be used to flip distance switches. He's a swing first, ask questions later kind of guy, which is why the thinking is best left to Eric. Olaf the Stout is the lovable big guy. He did once have the power of speech before the most recent Heroes of the Storm trailer gave him the voice of the Swedish chef.
No one said it was your fault, Olaf.
As the giant of the group, Olaf carries a shield appropriate for a man of his stature. He not only uses it to deflect enemy attacks and protect his fellow Vikings, he also uses it as a makeshift hang glider. Use the hang glider effect to float safely to new areas. The best part of this feature? Other Vikings can also hitch a ride on top. For those unfamiliar with the Lost Vikings, they were all suddenly abducted by extraterrestrials. Finding themselves aboard a strange spaceship pioneered by a salad-based race of aliens called the Croutonians, over the course of 35 levels, the Vikings have to find a way to escape. Along the way, they must contend with the forces of an evil Croutonian emperor, hellbent on making the Vikings his latest zoo exhibit. The three Vikings must all work together to flip switches, defeat hostile aliens, and all reach each stage's exit together. And yes, all three Vikings must make it to the end, so if one bites the dust, it's time to start over. Given the multitude of obstacles like conveyor belts, lasers, electrified gates, and sentries aboard the ship, it is definitely not an easy task to keep everyone coordinated, especially given that while controlling a single character, the other two are completely vulnerable to attack. Players are taken across different environments such as prehistoric times, the Egyptian desert, an industrial factory, and others. The Lost Vikings wasn't just a clever puzzle game, it was also cleverly written and had the kind of humor and sharp wit that wasn't all that common in early 90s console gaming. The Lost Vikings went on to become a major hit on the Super NES, with several ports being released a year later. Blizzard followed up their original tale with a Super NES sequel, The Lost Vikings 2 in 1997, nearly a full year after Nintendo released the N64. With gaming having ushered in a new era, ports were later released for the PC, PlayStation, and Sega Saturn. This adventure would be the last anyone would see of the Vikings before Blizzard would go on to focus on its core franchises that persist to this day. However, the legacy of Eric, Balog, and Olaf is widely remembered across Blizzard development. Many of Blizzard's devs still have a fond remembrance of the Vikings and provided some of their memories to Shacknews. To see their impressions of the Lost Vikings characters, check out the full article at shacknews.com.